welcome back to Evoked Thoughts, my fellow evokers. This is Emily the Pensive Fox, and I'm here with...
Jay,
Alex,
and Mason.
Alright, and today we're all going to be discussing the pros and cons of college/university and our experiences with it. So let's start off. How many in this room have gone to college, university, not necessarily needed to graduate, but have attempted it?
all four.
All right, all four. Just thought I'd confirm that for the viewers. And let's just go around. Just a general question. How does everyone feel about college, university? Just kind of starting off real vague here.
It's really, it has its purpose if you're going for higher education and you know exactly what you're wanting. Aside from that.
yeah, that's what I said.
But I mean, yeah, if you're going for engineering, law, business, medicine, holy crap, medicine.
Yeah.
Then yeah, go to college, get the actual higher education. But if you're going for gen ed, then high school failed you. That's what happened.
So I feel like college is for two people. One, people who already...
Just two. Just two people. One doctor, one lawyer. That's it.
That's all the world gets anymore.
I'm sorry.
I mean, yes, but
At a
no.
time? No, okay. Can only two people be in
Okay.
college at a time, or is
No,
it...
no, ever. There are only two more college slots ever. All the
Okay.
lawyers and all the doctor wannabes are fighting each other in a death match right now to see who wins.
Okay, but then if the people that get in then eventually die, do those slots get reopened?
No.
Oh, okay.
No,
Okay.
the college budget is now $5.
Okay,
Basis
so let me rephrase. Two types of people.
Okay.
Okay.
Ah.
Okay. Either people that already know exactly what they want, or at least believe they know exactly what they want to do and intend to follow through with it. Or people that have like a scholarship where like it's not costing them anything. They have a full ride or like everything's completely paid for and you're not risking any money while trying to figure out what you want to do.
Yeah, where the only thing they're wasting is potentially their own time.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, see, I actually, I got an interesting perspective on that because I actually, at my college, got one of the highest academic scholarships that was awarded by the college. And it wasn't necessarily a free ride, but to kind of give you some of the stipulations, it was 9 credit hours covered each semester. It was $1,000 one-time stipend trip, so it could be a study tour or a semester abroad, and that $1,000 goes to whatever that trip or abroad study is. And it was also a pretty significant housing discount, but it didn't cover everything. And with that scholarship, and with many scholarships, unfortunately, there are a lot of requirements beyond just the initial requirements. So it'll generally say like, oh, you have to have a 4.0 GPA and submit an essay for review by the scholarship board. And then a lot of times, even if you get accepted and you get that scholarship awarded to you, there are other things you have to do to keep the scholarship active. So in my case, I had to not only be an active participant in the Leadership of Tomorrow group, which meant going to monthly meetings and events, but also I had to meet a 12-hour volunteer time every month. So every hour I had to volunteer for 12 hours, which wasn't that bad. But then I had to be enrolled full-time all the time. There was no exception to that. And your GPA had to be above, it was 2.7 at first, but then I believe they changed it to 3.5 towards the end of when I was going to college. And you had to keep your GPA consistently above that. And if you ever fell below that, they would bring you in and have a conversation with you. And it generally led to you being put on probation for the rest of the...
Your knees broken.
Yeah, for the rest of the semester, if not for the rest of the semester and then the following semester. And that meant that if you're late to a meeting, if you miss a meeting, or you miss any other event, even if you have work, which I did a lot of the times, I had to work to pay off a lot of my college stuff and make those monthly payments. And like, they would always say work isn't an excuse. And then I was just like, well, how am I supposed to pay my bills? So you couldn't miss any meetings no matter what the reason unless it was absolutely some kind of family emergency. And there was one time, and this was towards the end of my college career. Sorry, I know I'm kind of rambling, but this is really important for people to know about scholarship organizations because it's really freaking sick. And not all organizations are like this. Mine just was, which is really sad. But towards the end of my second semester, I think. Yeah, towards the end of my second semester, I had to go to the hospital to get a test done. And that test just so happened to fall on the exact time of one of my finals. Now, I had an A in that class, so I wasn't too worried, and the teacher had already told me it would be fine. Well, the professor kind of went back on their word and screwed me over a little bit, but it didn't hurt me too much. It just brought my grade down to a B and lowered my GPA by 0.04. Not 0.4, no, 0.04. So it was a very small fraction, but it lowered me just below the GPA minimum. And because of that, I got called in for a meeting. I told them, I had a hospital visit for my serious heart condition, and they still put me on probation. And it was kind of sad because I had an actual reason for my GPA being lowered, but it just didn't matter to them. So aside from that, what kind of college experiences did you guys have, positive or negative?
Sorry, I just wanted to address what you said because
Yeah, go ahead.
I said it's for two types of people. One, people that know what they want to do, or also people that can just afford to try to explore.
Yeah.
And I know there are some situations where there's a lot of work that's involved in keeping a scholarship. I wasn't necessarily talking about people that have like really good scholarships and still have to work for it and all that stuff, because a lot of times you still end up acquiring some debt.
Oh yeah,
And,
yeah.
I'm talking like some people like.
You're talking full ride.
Yeah,
they
full
have
ride,
they have
like everything paid
money.
for, and those people know who they are.
Right. Yeah, no, I was just clarifying, I guess, what having a
Yeah.
scholarship means, because a lot of people think, oh, you're just getting free money because you submitted this essay or whatever, or you got straight A's in high school, and that's not the case. Most of the time you have to fulfill requirements even after you get awarded the scholarship.
That's called a grant. Some of those are actually free. Some of them are not.
Most of them are not.
Yes, be aware of which ones you're applying for if you're thinking about that as an option for funding your college ventures. But yeah, so I mean, I kind of shared a little bit of my experience. Obviously, mine wasn't too positive. But what are everyone else's experiences? Because I'm curious. Because as far as I know, none of us have completed. Am I correct in assuming that? Yeah. So all of us have had partial college, and we all have college credits, but none of us have actually completed or graduated for our own reasons.
I'm currently still in college. I have no real negative experiences due to college itself, more just life and money. But for me, college has been a way to explore the precise ways I want to pursue a career and what those are going to look like, what that looks like in a professional sense. Any of the things you don't know as a base, the things that you only find out through experience. And it showed me where my limits are. You can't know until you find out, but it's something I'm still pursuing. I'm like probably a quarter through my degree at this point, and it's weird. I haven't talked to the counselor in a while because I just look at what I need and handle it. But it's not been a negative experience for me. It's a stressful one. God, is it a stressful one. But that's the nature of college. It's a lot of work to learn more. And sometimes it's not necessarily worth it if you're doing something where there are like classes offered outside of college. You can do that if you're just looking for the information and the experience. You can do that in a lot of fields. And drawing back to doctors, lawyers, etc. You can't do that. You need please have a degree if you're going to be operating on a body.
Yes.
Please.
Yeah, and
please.
if anyone tries to operate on you and they can't show you their degree, leave.
Yeah,
and go to a real doctor.
Yeah, or at least, maybe they're a real doctor, but go to one that shows off that, yes, I did in fact get this piece of paper. And frankly, college as a fundamental thing in America is something based almost entirely off of just stigma. The stigma that's just the next step. You go to high school, then you go to college. The stigma that you need a degree to be successful. The stigma that this piece of paper holds so much merit.
God, but what an expensive piece of paper,
Oh yeah. It's entirely based off of stigma, and that stigma has almost no actual validity. Past again, the things you really need those masters and doctorates for. But if you're going just for our friend Tommy, he's currently going for what is it, screenwriting currently?
Well, technically he's going for a whole rounded kind of film degree at a community college, but basically he's only taking the classes that he really needs, that he can't get the information somewhere else, and it's really helping him to learn things that he doesn't know.
But he's probably not going to finish his degree because he's only there for those specific classes. And there's a lot of things if you're going into acting or art, a lot of the artistic fields in the world, you can just experiment on your own and talk with other people in the field. You don't really need to go to a university.
Right.
You can if you want, and you're going to get a different set of information. You're going to find the professionals that want to teach, hopefully. Sometimes you get bad professors, and that's an unfortunate fact of the universe. Bad people exist. But it's not always a required thing. And some people want to go just because they want to go, or it's they're the first in their family to go to college, so they want to get that done. But there's also the stigma that I'm only getting a bachelor's degree, I should have this done in 4 years. Who cares? It's your race. Run it at your pace, and you finish when you're done. And if you want to be done in 4 years, do that. But the only one that decides your pace is you. And I find a lot of counselors and people outside of you try to decide or tell you what that pace should be, but no one can decide that but you.
Yeah. Man, I have a hard time talking about college because I think there's a lot of ire for me wrapped up in it, mostly just based on the fact that college is, above all things, a business, and I think it shows in a way that I wasn't expecting as a child, because I think, to me, I always loved learning. I loved learning new things. I loved putting time into learning, doing outside research. I really, really liked to gain new information, and college always seemed like this holy grail of wow, I can go to a place where there aren't just a bunch of teachers who might know what they're talking about but might not, and might care what they're doing and might not. There's a bunch of people who've been doing this forever, and this is their area of study, and this is what they want to talk about. And I was so excited, in a really nerdy way, to go and sit in this stadium-style classroom and have this really, really important, intelligent person telling me stuff that I could never hope to learn anywhere else. And I think that illusion was broken so quickly for me with, one, the amount of money that I had to spend. I didn't get a scholarship or anything, not for lack of trying, just for failure. And the amount of money, but then on top of that, also the lack of content. By the end of my college, career, it was about 2 years worth of time and, something like $8,000 or whatever, not including housing and food and all that. And I honestly, there's not much other than maybe a couple of elective classes I can really think back on where I learned anything that I know I'm going to continue to use, it ended up being very much just an extended high school experience for me, which sucked because it wasn't at all what I was expecting. And at the time, I didn't really understand what it was going to take. But now looking back on it, I'm like, it's not really what I was paying for either. But the thing is, it's a business that gets away with something that's so insane to me because it doesn't have to give you what it wants. In fact, it is a mandatory thing in which you are expected to pay them to go through this process of learning what they want you to learn in the order they want you to learn it. Yeah, you can add in your degree stuff, but that's only if you know what you want to do. My problem was I knew sort of what I wanted to do, but I didn't really know how to get there, and certainly not easily. And there wasn't really a direct path for my chosen career. And you know, it changed some. And people say, oh, you know, you change your major 2 or 3 times before you graduate. And it's like, yeah, sure, you probably do. But like, the fact that not only is that not really supported, but it's also like, they say it's expected, but like, it doesn't feel like it is. It feels like you're really supposed to know what you're doing. And I think the big thing is, you change your major and you still gotta pay for the shit you took, which is like, I get their point. But at the end of the day, I find myself scratching my head all the time as to why college costs anything, you know, or at the very least, why it costs nearly as much as it does. It'd be different if it was like, you know, $50, $100 for a class, you know, where it's like, okay, I can justify making this logical purchase for this thing that I'm going to use, you know, and especially if I could choose, you know, what I needed out of college. So it's like, oh, I only take my elective classes, or I take some of this gen ed and some of this elective. But the fact that I also am forced to pay for gen ed, which, you know, 2, 3 of the classes might be interesting enough, but I mean, if I was, as a consumer, making a purchase of those items, I probably wouldn't have bought them all. And if I could have bought, you know, part of one, or like a specific lesson or something, like, it blows my mind that you're paying for it and don't really have any control over what you're paying for.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think that was, on my end, one of the most frustrating things about the scholarship organization I was a part of. And I understand that my story is very obviously subjective and, you know, probably doesn't happen to a lot of people. But the scholarship organization, along with requiring 12 credit hours, you know, full-time every semester, they also required us to take specific classes each semester, and they were basically leadership classes. So I had to enroll in a leadership class of their choice on top of the 12 credit hours that I had to be taking to maintain the scholarship. And to me, when I first got the scholarship, I was so excited because I thought, I have 9 credit hours covered. I could just take 9 credit hours a semester. And then I saw all the requirements, and I thought, okay, that's a little much, but I mean, they're still paying for most of it. And then I found myself absolutely drowning in debt, and I had a scholarship. And to me, I was so utterly disappointed. It made me like physically ill. I spent my entire life getting straight A's in school. I got 1 C in the entire course of my life, 1 C in 1 class, and it just boggles my mind that there's kids who work so hard to go to college and get a scholarship only to still be drowning in debt and struggling to pay the finances. And I find myself asking the same question Jay asks, why does it even cost anything anymore? And to me, I feel like my opinions on it have definitely changed, because a few years ago, if you asked me, I would have said, yeah, I mean, college costs money. That's just how it's always been. But I mean, now if you ask me, I'd say I believe everyone has the right to the opportunity to higher education. And because it is such a high amount of money that so many people can't afford, it bars a lot of people and excludes them from becoming something more and following their dreams.
I'm curious. So they covered 9 credit hours. That's 3 classes.
Yes.
Would you say the required classes a semester were 3 classes? Give or take?
No, because you had to be above 12. And on top of the class you were taking from
I'm
them.
saying the class. You say they required.
Did they pay for themselves? Is basically what he's
Did the
asking.
classes pay for
No.
themselves? Oh, sorry. Let it rephrase it. Sorry.
You said they required you to take certain courses.
Yes.
Would you say per semester those required courses were about 3 courses? Those leadership courses were you required to take, give or take, 3 a semester, or something that attributed to that leadership program?
You usually you only had to take 1 leadership class a semester.
Okay.
So it wasn't like suffocating, but it was enough that I was like, this isn't part of my major. And like, it was kind of cool at first because they brought in a lot of speakers, specifically like politicians and government officials and stuff like that.
Sure.
But it was frustrating because it had nothing to do with.
Yeah. So initially what they did rather is they're a people factory. They're creating, and unfortunately, you signed up for that without realizing that. But you signed up for that. You signed up to be a part of the people factory. They are grooming a specific type of people, so they figured, yeah, we'll pay to make these people, and then we'll have them.
And they were. And one of the things that sickened me about the organization, because originally I was like, oh, they're doing good work. They're making us volunteer, and they're having us go to these nonprofit events. But it was sickening because they would tell people, you're the leaders on campus. You're the future. I'm going to say it because it'll be found out pretty soon anyway. But the organization literally called itself the Future Leaders of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it was kind of sick to have all these, fresh, young 20-year-olds who suddenly believed that they're going to be the leaders of the world when they graduate. And it really went to a lot of these kids' heads. And that was another factor in why I eventually left the organization, is because I was tired of being around people like that and I didn't want to associate with them anymore.
Yeah. It's an unfortunate fact that some, not even all, not even most, but the ones you hear about, the bad ones that you hear about, they are people factor. They create types of people. They create politicians or businessmen or doctors or anything, depending on what the program
Important
is.
black men in society. I can't tell you how many times I was lobbied by this super hyper just, you're a black guy, you need to do black guy stuff. Come hang out with all these black guys and be a black guy. And I'm like, man, I'm half black. And, I have no problem that this thing exists and everything, but I hate that it's such a targeted thing. It's you have this obligation to your people, Wakanda, I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah, I was never asked to be part of the Black Men's Association.
Yeah, I know, right? And I was like, that's not fair. Come on, she's more black than me. Okay, so Mason, what is your experience with college?
Well, let me say, I was really excited from probably starting around my middle school years thinking about college, because when you're a kid, at least this is how it was for me, it was exciting to think about, what I want to do, what I want to take. People are always asking you that growing up. What do you want to do? And college is usually in those questions, right? And back in 8th grade, I always wanted to, 8th grade through a couple of years in high school probably, I wanted to go to school and be a preacher and take Bible. But I realized about halfway through high school that I wasn't going to be able to go to the school that I wanted to, because it was just going to be too expensive. And I'd already, I didn't take high school seriously enough. And at that point, the damage had been done. And so anyways, when high school ended, I decided I didn't feel like going to college, not yet anyway, maybe I would. I went to work for a year, and I hated that, so I ended up enrolling in school, and I still had no clue what I wanted to do. So I just, got some basic classes down on my schedule, and since I'm so antisocial, I took online. And long story short, I didn't care about it. It wasn't interesting to me. I had no clue what I wanted to do. Just doing it because it was what you were supposed to do. And I wasted some time, but luckily for me, and I'm sure there's other people that weren't nearly as lucky, I had the Oklahoma Promise and had a couple grants and stuff. So I didn't build up any debt, unlike some people do, without realizing, the costs of school. So I got lucky, and now I'm just gonna go after what I want to do, and maybe I'll go to school again someday for fun because I want to learn. But as career-wise, I don't think college is for me. So.
Yeah. And that's my biggest thing is that I love to learn. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm constantly asking questions, wanting to learn about new things. And so, yeah, I mean, I feel that sort of, wanting to be able to do this thing, but, not being able to do it. And I think the main problem that I see and that I've seen a lot of people struggle with is finances. And I'm kind of curious what everyone thinks. Do you guys think college should be free? Do you think that's something that should be offered to everyone as a sort of public source?
I think it should be readily accessible. I don't think it should be quite so difficult to even get into and then maintain. But I don't think it should be free because if someone's a career teacher, they should be compensated for teaching. I don't think if that's what they're doing, their whole focus is enriching the minds of others, they should be paid for that.
Do you think that so I mean, obviously I want the professors to get paid what they need to get paid. I was more thinking, should college be free, meaning that the government solely and wholly pays for all expenses relating to the university, upkeep, and employee pay?
I think, to me, I don't think that college should be free as a whole. I want college to be free personally. I think everyone wants it to be free. But, I don't think that that's the right way to do it. I think that if the government is allocating money to college that significantly, that's a big amount of money they're going to be switching over because we're paying a lot of money to go. So they're going to expect that same amount of money to be able to pay all the teachers and everything. So that's a lot of money that's coming from somewhere. We're going to start seeing it drop in something else. And on top of that, probably a raise in taxes, which is scary. But I think what I would really like would be probably one of two systems or something kind of similar. Either volunteer colleges, not to say all colleges free, but certain colleges, maybe even half semester offering colleges where basically a professor could do half a semester at their normal college and get paid, proficiently, and then do free time over at this other college for free. I think that would be really cool. Or certain colleges, the Ivy League stuff, the stuff that you do have to test to get into, the stuff that's not going to waver or sway. I think that those types of colleges could be more premium kind of concepts. I think, to me, in terms of the payment of it, my problem isn't necessarily that I'm paying. I hate that I'm paying as much as I'm paying. I think it's insane. But I would be a lot more open to paying if I knew what I was paying for. I think that's the big thing. I don't choose my professor. Not really. I can ask politely, right? But I can't choose. I don't have any confirmation that I'm even going to get the classes I want. But if I enroll, I'm enrolled. So I can't just not, there's that stigma of the dropout and everything. So it's especially when you first get into it, you don't know what the hell you're supposed to be doing. You just think, I've got to be in college. So you got to figure it all out. You can't take a year off and then come back to it and feel good about yourself. You feel like a loser. It's hard to do. And it's not adequately, not even explained, but presented. There's so many classes. And you look at it, this list, and go, oh, that looks cool, that looks cool, that's cool. And they're like, oh, well, that has a prerequisite, and this needs this, and you have to do this with this, and you have to have this scholarship for this one. And it's well, why do I even have this list then? You know what I mean? It's I think accessibility is what I'm really looking for. And then I think truth and transparency is the other important part, right? So show me what I can actually do, right? But then also, let me do what I'm paying for. If I say this is what I want to do, then tell me what I can do to get there. And I think, I was fortunate enough to have a really, really great college counselor. And honestly, all the way up until the time that I dropped out, and I did drop out, I still thanked her. I sent her an email after I dropped out thanking her, and I've seen her again since then. Like, she was really, really great, and she was my freshman counselor, and I kept going back to her as a sophomore because like she really got what I was trying to do and was really able to help me. And I think that that's, you know, a part of it, but the other part of it is that like we've kind of said, it's not accessible for some people, and even if you do get the scholarships, it is still so much money. It is so much more money than you spend on anything ever. You know, I mean, the only comparable thing I can really think of that like a you know, general human member of society is going to spend that much money on is like a house. You know,
food over their lifetime.
Yeah, but like it is like if you look at those numbers and compare it to any other expense you've ever had, you know, even like insurance and stuff, it is nowhere near. The numbers are astronomical, and it's expected from you from the very beginning. And you feel it and recognize it growing as you keep going until eventually you're like, man, I'm in my senior year and I've got $400,000 in debt. What do I do with that?
On the idea of it being paid for the government, as nice as that sounds, I'm strongly against it because at that point, the government, rightfully, since it's paying for it, has obligation to determine what the education should be.
Yeah, and
That's
currently
fair,
colleges are mostly free, like free agents, like free of government intervention in
Yes.
most cases. They
turns
are, what's the word, autonomous from that system.
It turns it into high school.
And I mean, if the government starts paying for it, it becomes a public school system. I think that's scary. That's why I like the idea. I guess my kind of concept would be almost like a non-profit, like charity colleges. Basically, like if there could be a step, you know, akin to a community college where you can go for free, and you recognize that, you know, it's only who's willing to do this. So, you know, it might not be, you know, the highest level professors and stuff. And I think that, you know, those are the times where you would decide, like, okay, well, I'll take some classes here for free, and then I'll go take some classes I need to take at this other college. You know, I just think there's not enough options that are actually viable. There's a lot of options, but they're not real options. It's all just the same shit with different letters in front of it.
Right.
I myself actually am a big advocate for vocational school.
Yeah.
I personally went. I'm pursuing to be a creator, an actor, and then sideline writer. It's not a steady stream of work and payment. So I was like, I'll go get a vocational degree. That's something that you know, I can apply to almost anywhere. And I went. I was fortunate enough that high school paid for it for me, and I know in our state, all the public schools are similar, that if you qualify, they'll pay for it. And even outside of, I started my vocational school in senior year. It's a 2-year program, and because I started as a high schooler, they let me continue for free. But I got a culinary arts degree, thinking, you know, no matter where in the world I am, people got to eat. And that's something I have. That's done. But it's so much cheaper. I think collectively, if I had to pay the total cost for what's, you know, it's a 2-year program, but it's from professionals in the field, and really good information, was collectively would have been $7,000 for professional instruction, which, you know, is a lot of money, but
I accumulated that in my first year of college
yeah.
on scholarship. Jay, I believe, accumulated that in the first semester.
Like
Yes.
it is so much cheaper, and you know what? Even if that you then have debt for the rest of your life, you're probably not gonna, because you could pay $100 a month if you can, you know. And then it disappears, as opposed to some people have really bad college debt that they have until they die.
Yeah, some of it is literally impossible to pay, because the thing about it that I think is, I don't want to use the word predatory because I don't think that's fair. I just think that it is unfair. It's set up in such a way that your greatest expense, or at least one of your greatest expenses in your life, is beginning as soon as you become an adult. So as soon as you get into college, you're starting to rack up this ridiculous number that you're never going to be able to pay, and they're giving you this idea of, well, we've got these grants for you, and well, we'll cover this, and well, you don't have to pay until you graduate. And so they keep just feeding you this bullshit that makes you continue without you really understanding what that number is going to look like at the end. And by the end, once you graduate, your expectation is that you then, like as the student, is you're going to get a job with that degree, which is not guaranteed in any capacity. And then you're going to use that to make enough money to pay off that degree. But what you as a student aren't thinking about until it becomes relevant to you, which is typically after you graduate, right? Or like maybe junior year after you move out or whatever. But like generally, you also have life expenses. You know, there's all your insurance, there's all of your bills, and on top of that, there's the possibility of stuff like emergencies or medical bills. And things stack up really, really quickly and really, really frighteningly. So on top of that, having this extra college bill that you are expected to pay every month on time, even when it's broken down into a payment plan, it's still really, really hard to do, and in some cases, impossible.
Mm-hmm. At one point, they were telling me that I had to pay $800 a month. And just to put it in perspective, I mean, I already posted on Facebook, so I don't care, it's public, but last year I made less than $9,000 total. Like the entire year, I went through all the way back to January 1st, added up every single paycheck I got last year, less than $9,000. And they wanted me to pay $800 a month. Like, it was ridiculous. I was making barely $500 a month most of the time. And that was on my good months.
Yeah.
Well, in regards to the question that was asked about free school, the government paying for it.
Right.
Well, my obvious answer would be no, I don't think that the government should pay for all school and all school should be free. Well, obviously that money's coming from somewhere, and the government gets their money from us. So, I mean, essentially that's everybody paying for whoever's going to school. But I think that college is way too expensive, and I think that something needs to be done about that. And I think a lot of it is this stigma that you have to go to college, because there was a time where going to college meant more than it does now. Because now it's like almost everybody does it. And so there was a time when it was actually something that, you know, it wasn't like everybody did it. You know, like it was
Upper
something
middle class.
Or well, yeah,
you know,
I mean, like
yeah.
what I mean is that I'm not trying to like negate anything anybody's done or knock down what they've done, but it's not nearly as much of an achievement now.
Yeah, for sure.
And
Yeah.
that's because they're telling everybody that everybody has to do, or you know, that's for everybody. And then there wasn't always a time like that, and it used to be a lot cheaper.
And the job market's getting flooded with people who all have bachelor's degrees.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the same shit.
Yep.
Yeah. And so
Even STEM degrees are flooded now. It's a mess.
There's so many people, I'm sure, who are just like, oh, I want to be a veterinarian. You know, because the world tells you you can be whatever you want. And so because of that, you get so many people who have very similar ideas, too. And so I can't imagine that there's many, like, markets that are really, like, still open.
and a lot of them are in like the social science areas, because I mean,
Yeah.
like I have so many friends that like want to study psychology, and I have like that's like one of the hardest things to get a job in, and there's so many people that seem
Yeah.
to be interested in that. But I think also like there's such a huge push to go to college that people are going when they're not ready. They don't know what they want to do. They're starting, you know, they're starting to accumulate debt, and you know they haven't even figured out what they want to do yet. So one thing I think that high school needs to be more about trying to figure out, you know, what are you going to do? You know, what are you going to try to take if you're going to go to college? What do you, because I mean right now, I mean what is it? I mean like nobody's happy with the education system right now, and which is another thing in regards to school being free. I mean that I mean it just waters down college, you know, not as bad as high school, but. And then, Jalen, you were talking about how, like, you don't know what you're paying for, like, you don't get to choose exactly what they're teaching you and stuff. And I think, I mean, it's more about getting the degree than it is actually learning what it is. And so, I think there's some people that they just want to, I just want to know about this. I want to learn about this. And so, and with all the prerequisites and stuff, like, what if I just want to know about this? I just want to learn about this. And that's, for a lot of people, that's probably what they're going to college for. They want to, explore these different areas. But if you have all this, stuff you have to do before that, I mean, that's just more and more you have to take before you're figuring out what you want to do.
I want to make this point because I think it's important. You said something about college being watered down and that, everyone kind of generally being disappointed with the education system. And I do believe that is a true statement, especially in the state that we live in where they're constantly cutting education year after year, when in fact they should be putting more funding into it, especially with taxes increasing all the time. But my point is that I would like it if, like you said, high school had more sort of prep classes, not just for college, and for kind of figuring out what you want to do if you do go into college, because I think that if you start requiring kids to take, prep college courses or, take this class, to learn about this, then you're alienating kids who know they don't want to go to college. But I think having those as options as like, what are they called? The extra classes. Electives, yeah, as electives. Because one of the things in high school that really disappointed me was that, there was a lack of electives I could take for the stuff I wanted to do. They offered like one psych course, which was nice. And then there was like one like creative writing course, which was also nice, but it was literally just 1, maybe 2 semesters, and it didn't really go into depth, and it was the same teacher. You didn't get different teachers with different perspectives and, different parts of the field. But also, I didn't learn anything in high school or college other than, of course, like basic mathematical and grammatical skills that have helped me in any of the professions I've had since high school. So, to put it in perspective, in the last week, I have learned how to correctly format and write a professional letter from an attorney's office. I learned how to use a fax machine, because that's not something they teach you in college. I learned an old school system of filing, which is important, especially if you're going into the legal field, because, computerized filing wasn't around until 20 years ago. And even then, it was still in its early stages. So if you're going back, a few decades, you're going to have to know how to pull all those paper files and look through them. But also an online filing system, which I'm currently learning how to do, transferring all the paper files into the online filing system. And none of that was taught to me in high school or college. I learned that literally in the first week of this new job. And so I think that besides pushing college so much, we should also be pushing for experiences, not just in the food industry, which is fine. The food industry has a lot to teach, but I think we should be pushing people to take more paid internships, because unpaid internships are just
Slavery.
It's literally slavery. It's illegal. If you are an unpaid intern, it is illegal in America. Like, watch Adam Knows Everything. What episode was it?
Adam Ruins Everything.
Adam Ruins Everything.
Episode 7 or 8. The one about work.
Yeah, the one about work.
You're not forced to work there.
Yeah, but the idea is that
if you're doing the work of a secretary,
the concept of it is illegal.
Well, I understand that. I'm just saying it's not slavery.
If you are doing the work of a secretary, you should be getting paid as a secretary. And I think that we need to be pushing and encouraging that more, rather than just, go get this degree, because people don't know what that means. And I would argue, going way back on what Jay was saying, I would argue that it is sort of predatory. I mean, we push these young adults who barely know what they're doing into a decision that's going to literally shape their life, whether it be through the debt they get or the degree. I mean, really both. So I would argue that it's predatory, because we don't do a good job as a society of educating high schoolers on what it really means to take on debt and to take on that kind of responsibility, or how to figure that out even. I remember the first semester of college was so hectic and so unbelievably stressful, because I barely knew what I was doing, and I thought I was really smart and really organized, and I was falling behind on stuff that I usually don't fall behind on.
Well, and I think the worst part about that aspect of it is that, like, it's expected. When you're in college for that first semester, that first year, everyone is like, you know, you're like, oh man, I have no idea what I'm doing. And usually people just go, yeah, me either. And you're like, wait, what? No one knows what they're doing? You know, you turn to a teacher and they're like, yeah, essentially it boils, their advice to you in most cases boils down to sometimes it just be like that. And you're like, wait, but like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And they're like, welcome to college, and walk away. You're like, dude, what is, like,
No.
how would I have properly prepared for this? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's a test that you don't have the studying for.
Now, granted, colleges do offer advisors, but a lot of times they are very underemployed in that department. They don't have enough people to keep up with the amount of students they have, and those people are severely overworked and have way too many students on their, I don't know a better word for this, but their caseload essentially, you know? So to me, I was going to suggest, going back to the original question of should college be free, I was going to suggest that maybe one of the ways we could solve this problem, or, you know, maybe someone test this theory out, is start putting, you know, college/life prep courses as electives in high school, so that kids who are either going to college or not, so if you're not going to college, you can take, you know, a life course that teaches you about bills and terminology that you can use when you're getting, you know, renting your apartment, buying a house, whatever, so that people know how to do that process. Because I didn't know what a cashier's check was until we rented our first apartment, and I certainly didn't know how to get one. So those are important things that I feel like our high school should be teaching young adults going into the world.
Oh, I find most people have those kind of opinions that we don't teach important things in high school. Did you know there's about 30 human rights? Can you name them? Any of them? Yeah, we don't teach the basic human rights. You should know your human rights. They don't actually teach laws.
We teach the Constitution in a very limited aspect, and not in a way that you're ever going to remember any of it in full.
Yeah.
But like in regards to the real way that these things are going to work, I think the biggest problem with high school preparing you for life, because they have started offering these courses where half of a health course is also a bills course, or half of your humanities course covers finances, but like, it's never just that course. It's always tacked on to something. In my experience, granted, I haven't been a high schooler for like 6 years, but also...
Like 3.
Has it really only been 3?
Well,
It's only been 3.
2019.
Wow, God,
and we
okay,
graduated
jeez.
16.
It feels like
I
6.
feel 40,
I feel
guys.
like it's been a long time too.
It's because you act like you're 60.
Yeah, well, you know, I like chamomile, sue me.
No, you don't.
No, I don't.
I like chamomile.
No.
I'm trying
I
to get
just,
you to
look,
try it, and you're fucking...
I've been through a lot of life, friend. But the point is, like, the teacher who teaches it, generally it's not even their subject, right? So they don't care, really. It feels like a tacked on thing that they have to do.
Or they're a football coach teaching
Or they're
just
a
so they
football
can coach.
teaching it, yeah. And, like,
Oh my God,
what
never
they
again,
do
please.
teach, though, is always so, like, by the books, one scenario, and it doesn't prepare you. I mean, the biggest problem about it is you coming out of high school, even if you've done as much as they currently can do to prepare you, are not going to be prepared. You're going to have questions, right? Which you should. But, like, I'm talking about, on the whole, you're not going to know how to do most of what you need to do. You're not going to know simple stuff like, what are utilities? Like, the word utilities, okay, cool, but what does that break down to? How do I do that? Yeah, that's a question you're going to turn to your parents and try to figure out, and, you know, if they have the time, they're going to tell you. If not, you're going to figure it out somehow. But it's like, that shouldn't be the system. The expectation shouldn't be, we'll teach you all the stuff you really don't need to know. That's just general stuff that, like, a human being might know. And then the important life stuff is the stuff you've got to figure out. Like, it's everyone fend for themselves. You either do it or you're homeless. It's like, what? Like, why is that how that works? How do I not have 3 classes teaching me finances and insurance and you know, the proper, way to file taxes and everything. Like, there's so many things that just jumping right into college, just the packet, the enrollment packet for college, I had no idea what I was doing. So much like tax information that I'm just like signing away that I have no idea what any of it means. And like, it's intimidating immediately, like really in senior year of high school, you get that packet and have no idea what you're doing. So, not to mention signing up for student aid and stuff like that, where you're literally taking on massive loans, having no real idea like what any of it means or like when you're really gonna have to pay it back, or in what capacity. It's scary.
Well, I'm sorry. You guys both mentioned the word predatory. I think there is some things about it that are predatory. When I only took one class on campus over my, I guess it was a year of schooling that I took, and the one through this one class, I didn't know much about what I was enrolled into and what was all covered by my grants and by what I was paying for tuition. Or there's a lot of stuff that they include into your tuition fees. So UCO, it has a gym and it has all these different things that you can do that are already built into your expenses.
Yes.
And so it's like, well, I mean, they do tell you that they're built into your expenses, and you can use those. So it's free now.
Of your bill.
Yeah, and so I mean, like that's one of the reasons it's so expensive. They have all this stuff built in, that you may or may not use, where you would save so much more money if those weren't paid for, and then if you needed to use them, you paid for them.
Yeah, if you had a choice.
Votech.
Yeah, and so what? Just real quick. And that's I mean, that is I would consider that predatory. I mean, they're charging you for a bunch of stuff without really,
Yeah, I have a hard time throwing out the word predatory because I think that it sets a precedent for the entirety of how you feel about something, and I don't think that all of college.
Yeah, I'm just saying like some of that.
But I think that there are
it's not
definitely
necessary, and that's one of the
aspects
reasons it's so expensive.
I think the system of college is predatory. I will go on record saying that, no hesitation. I believe the system is predatory. I don't believe that people who run college and advocate for college are predatory people who just want our money. I truly believe they believe in higher education and want people to get their degrees and be successful in life. But the system, how it's set up, is predatory to me. And I think kind of through this conversation, a lot of the problems we've seen are, one, high schoolers aren't being prepared enough for college or life in general and the choices and decisions they'll have to make, nor are they well informed on those decisions or choices. And secondly, it's very expensive, and because of that, not easily attainable or accessible to many people. And even those it is accessible to, it puts them in debt that causes them stress and strife for the rest of their life most of the time.
The only thing they inform you in high school about college is that you have to go.
Yeah, pretty much.
Really.
But I think we've also established some positives. I mean, there are people who need to get their degrees to be successful in their field, and
yes, please have a degree before you cut me open.
Yes.
Or say if I'm or before you say if I'm guilty or innocent.
And I think that we found
or just don't charge me too much if you don't have a degree.
Jeez, that was.
I was leaning on the lawyer part, but
you want to use that free coupon?
But I wasn't really.
If you were talking about medical, there's a reason why it's illegal to do surgeries on people because if you charge less, people will accept that.
Yeah.
I think
that is exactly the reason.
Yeah.
I think we've explored some other options as well. I mean, Votech is a good, viable option to people who don't want to go through the full college experience, but do want something that can sustain them. And, community colleges or colleges that don't cost as much, perhaps maybe someday someone will open some sort of voluntary, free college of some kind. But also, I think that, because the government has, one of the reasons our tuition has gone up is because the government keeps cutting funding from the schools. So I think if the government started funding again, maybe not full on funding till it's free, but until the cost gets lowered to a reasonable amount for people, then that would also help take the debt burden off. Because being in debt isn't helping our economy, it's not helping the individuals or society. I mean, all around, it would be better if the government, helped fund college education more as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, look at this. If I'm in debt, that money doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Like, it's not anywhere in the system. I don't have it yet. You don't have it yet. There is no benefit to you for me being in debt except the hope that I might eventually pay it, But, like, there is no way that you're going to gain, immediately from debt, and you're not going to gain any more from debt unless, it lapses. You're just getting these trickle-down payments that are, like, not helping anyone.
And honestly, I am of the personal opinion that I am okay with taxes are going up if they are better for everyone as a whole. So yes, not everyone has gone to college, and not everyone has completed college. I certainly haven't. And even if I never went to college, I wouldn't mind paying a little bit more in taxes so that it could be more accessible to everyone. That's the point of taxes. Not all of your tax money goes to something that you utilize. I mean, Medicaid is a good example of that. Food stamps are a good example of that. I mean, not everyone.
I've never been in a life-threatening fire, but I'm very okay with paying for firemen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Very, very okay.
Exactly. So I think that on a whole, this is an issue that a lot of the population, more than 90% probably, I mean, that's just a number I'm throwing out there, but a lot of people struggle with this, and it's not helping our economy, and I'd be fine if taxes went up a little bit to help ease that burden.
For sure.
I have to disagree with, not entirely, but I do think that, I mean, there are some things that taxes are needed for, but I don't think that, I don't agree with raising taxes to pay for certain things, and I'm not exactly going to give any specifics on that, but I think there's some things that taxes shouldn't be used for, and that it's not right for the government to increase taxes because they want to do. I want to do this with. I mean, is stealing okay if you do good with it?
No, yeah, I get what you mean there.
And I mean, that's, because what is stealing? Stealing is taking something that doesn't belong to you by force. And that's what taxes are. I mean, you can't just not pay taxes.
Right.
I mean,
It's forced,
yeah, and that's
right?
a completely different conversation.
Well,
but
yeah, I know. But
I
what
see
I'm
what you're saying, yes.
is even if you're doing good with that money,
Yeah.
it's still stealing.
Right.
So,
Because basically, I get what you mean, because basically an individual does not get to choose to avoid certain taxes. So
Yeah.
if the tax is raised for everyone, then that means that everyone is just, by being a human American, subject to that raise. And then we all, whether we disagree with it or not, are then paying for whatever that
And
is.
I understand
assuming
that as
you
well,
have
and-
an income.
Yeah, I understand that as well. And honestly, I have a secondary option. They don't have to raise taxes. They could just cut it from somewhere else. Military spending.
Moving on.
But, yeah, we're moving on from that. Anyway.
But we've spoken a lot about college as a positive and a negative. I think, to me, one big thing that I feel I have really no problem with saying, I mean, unless there becomes an option in which I can freely or at a very low cost take some pickup classes and get somewhere that I feel like comfortable and like is worthwhile, I don't see myself ever returning to college, and I don't ever really feel like I need to or want to spend that time, and I think that it should be said that, and it sounds crazy, but like really, I think that it's important for people to know that it's not the only option. Like, finishing high school is one thing, right? Like, if you drop out of high school, I think that high school is really important. I think that, honestly, it's, like, that is free schooling all the way through high school, and I think that all of the primary and secondary and tertiary sort of, like, that's how you build a human person, and as much of it as seems unimportant, I don't think that they're like really looking back on it. I don't think there's much from, you know, high school, middle school, or elementary school that like really I regret learning. Like, it is free information that I will always have and will always fuel what I understand and allow me to build on that at will in any capacity. I can go on YouTube and have a base understanding of anything and build that up in my own way, however I want. But I think that college is an option. And I don't think that it's presented that way, and I think that sucks. I think it really sucks that everyone believes they have to do this. But I think especially with how the generation is that's growing up now, so many of these kids are so much smarter than any of the people I knew coming out of college, just in regards to something like programming or like even just like social media. Like, there are entire businesses predicated on those concepts that I know nothing about and didn't learn anything about in school, except maybe like a very base thing. But like the only programming I ever got was outside work that I did on my own. So like these kids who are growing up with all this capability, then feeling like they have to go to college, like some people don't. And I think that's okay. And I think it's important that that's presented. That like, I think the greatest crime of college's existence is that it is presented as mandatory, but isn't mandatory. It is important, I think, for a lot of people, and I think it's too important to a lot more people. And I think it determines, in a lot of places it shouldn't, what you're capable of doing, what you're going to be allowed to do. But I think that also there are a lot of means by which you can form something, you can craft something and build something for yourself without having to deal with college. And looking back on it, if I could have known where I wanted to be, I mean, I could have just jumped right into the workforce. I could have been building up capital, and I could have started what I wanted to start a lot earlier. And the biggest thing about it was just I didn't know that that was an option. I think I really believed that college was a necessity, not just in a like you have to do this or you're gonna be fucked, but more in the sense of like you really truly cannot not do this. There is such a leper's stigma on a dropout. It's such a heavy word with such a powerful connotation to most people, you know? There is an expectation that a young 20-something is going to college and making themselves better, and if they're not, if they're not going to college, they are not making themselves better, and I just fundamentally disagree with that. I think that you making yourself better is whatever you make of that, and whatever you need that to be. You know, there are people who don't need college for what they want to do, and I think that that is something that should be talked about more.
But suffice to say all that, let us know your thoughts. I mean, everyone has their own experience, especially with college. If you have your own perspective, your own thoughts, share it.
Yeah, please. You can comment on Podbean. There's actually a little comment button there. And also just, have the conversation. You know, if you're a parent, talk to your kids. If you're a kid, talk to your parents. I think that it's a scary thing when you first present it, but I think that the more it's spoken about, there is no one I know of who has, made the decision to drop out, like informed, step away from college and do something else, who has had a conversation with their parents and they've just been completely against it. You'll find that in most cases, everyone just wants the people they care about to succeed and to be safe and to be okay. And I think that, there are a lot of ways to do that. So, all right. Does anyone have any closing thoughts?
A warning on Jay's point. Your parents may be mad for a minute. They have this whole vision of you, being a nice college graduate. And if you decide to drop out or decide you don't want to go, stick to your guns. And if you change your mind later, you can always reapply for college. You can always go back. The college credits you have, the high school GPA you have, are always going to be there. That's not going away. Everyone acts like there's this timetable on it. There's not. if you decide you need a break from college and you may go back in 5 years or you may not, just do it. Like, just stick to your guns. Tell them, I need a break, or I don't want to do this anymore. Don't waste 4 years of your life and tens of thousands of dollars in money that you don't have on something that you're not passionate about. Go and do what you really want to do. Because I can tell you, my life is a lot better because of it.
Yeah, and also, if you do know what you want to do, but you don't, like, you really don't feel ready for college, please, just, even if it's just a semester, like, give yourself some time. If you really know what you want to do, but you're really afraid of college, like, it's scary. And if you can take the time to learn or to prepare yourself, or maybe just get a little bit of money and be able to move out and do a little bit of, like, human life stuff first and then college, like, there really is not a timetable.
It's not going anywhere.
It really isn't. I promise. In fact, they're going to make sure you know they're not going anywhere.
Do what makes you feel comfortable, not what everyone else is doing. It's your life, not anyone else's. Don't let your parents or your friends or any other family member tell you what to do. And yeah, your parents might be mad, but the point is, they'll get over it because they love you, you're their child, and they want what's best for you most of the time.
I just one last thing, or to sum up what I think anyway, is that there are tons of people that go to college that end up unhappy or unsuccessful, and there are tons of people that don't go to college that end up successful and happy. So I mean, like, just because you go to college doesn't mean you're going to be happy, and just because you don't doesn't mean you're going to be happy. It's for you to figure out what you need to do.
Yeah. All right. Well, if that's everyone's closing thoughts, Em, you want to close us up?
Yeah, so thanks again for listening. As Jay said, you can comment down below. You can follow us, I believe, right?
Yeah, you can follow the Evoked Thoughts podcast on Podbean. Also, share with your friends, and yeah, you can comment directly from the app or the website.
Yeah, so follow us for more content, and we'll see you again in a few weeks.
Bye,
Possibly
everyone.
less.
All right. Bye.